Hi everyone, this is Jathu from Property Framework, and today I want to talk about short-term growth. Now, short-term growth is growth that happens in a property market for the next 2 years, sometimes even up to 3 years. Why short-term growth is important is because if you have an intention of building out a portfolio or buying a few properties, then you will need that growth, and you'll need that growth quickly so that you can use the equity from that property to go into the next property and so on. So short-term growth is crucial, right? So the common mistake that I see investors doing is that they buy into an area just by looking at macro level factors. That means it's a big city. It has a lot of migration coming into that area, overseas migration into that area. There are lots of jobs being created. Yes, all of that is important, but you need to go one step further. You need to look at micro level trends. So these micro level trends are actually what's happening in the property market. So only when you understand these micro level trends, you would know for sure that you're going to have short-term growth. Because if you ignore these micro level trends or the property market data and buy into a market, then you might have to wait years before any growth happens, or you might be even buying into a market that's going down in value, and that's something that nobody wants. So it becomes really important for you to really understand this property market data. And today I'm just going to show you that. So if you're someone who likes to analyze property markets, likes to look at the trends, then you would really get a lot of value from this video, because I'm just going to show you on a very high level how you can forecast growth in a particular market for the next 2 to 3 years. So let's get into this. So let's go to this website called suburbtrends.com. Go to the map section, and under suburbs, key in your suburb of interest. Now I'm going to choose a regional market in NSW, which is Wagga Wagga. Right, so the data here is actually on an SA3 level. So even though I've keyed in Wagga Wagga, the suburb, this data is for the LGA, or the collection of suburbs, which consists of that greater Wagga Wagga area, right? And this is generally considered to be more accurate because there are more data points that are being considered here, right? So there are a few data points that we are going to look at under this house trends section. The first one is the house inventory, and the second one is house listings, and then we also have house prices, right? So let me first explain what housing inventory means, right? So let's say you have 10 properties in a on realestate.com or domain.com, and in that suburb 10 properties sell every month. Okay, we're not adding any more properties to those listings. There's only at 10. That means that inventory is 10 divided by 10. There's 1 month of inventory left. Let's say there are 40 properties on realestate.com, domain.com, and there are no more properties added to those sites. That means it's just at 40, and then in that suburb 10 properties sell every month. That means the number of months of inventory is 40 divided by 10, 4 months of inventory, right? So in heated markets, you'll generally find that there is usually under 3 months of inventory. It's usually under 3 months of inventory is becoming a seller's market. And then when you have more than 3 months of inventory, that's usually considered to be a buyer's market. So what we're really interested is the trend. We want the inventory to be going down, and that is a clear indicator of market pressure starting to build up. Okay, and even with the house listings, we want that listings to go down, showing that the number of properties or the supply available in that market is reducing, right? So what we can see here, like inventory in Wagga Wagga, we start off at 4 months of inventory, and then there's no sign of it reducing. It's now heading towards that 6 mark, so it's at 5.9. So inventory is moving up. That is not a good sign, and the listings are also moving up. You can see from 400 listings to around 546 listings. So a significant increase in the number of listings in Wagga Wagga. So that means that we're not going to really have any short-term growth, or there's not going to be much growth coming in this Wagga Wagga market. Now, let's look at another suburb. Let's look at Melbourne. So I'm going to look at Truganina, which is in Melbourne CBD, about 30 kilometers from Melbourne CBD. Truganina is a very popular area for young families, but look at its housing market here. So 10 months of inventory. So that's huge. That's a huge inventory pile up, right? And it's not showing any signs of decreasing. It's constant at 10 months here. And then the listings has been around that 1,300, and it's heading towards 1,628. So until we see this inventory reducing and coming down, we're not going to have any price growth in Truganina, and it's going to take about a year or two before that could potentially happen. So no short-term growth is going to be expected in a market like Truganina. Now let's move to regional Victoria and look at a market like Bendigo. Let's see what's happening there. So when you look at Bendigo, so housing inventory has been at 5.1 in May 2023, and it's now at 5.53. So it's increased. And then the listings have also shown an increase. 544 listings in May 23, and around 641 listings in May 24. So an increase in the inventory, increase in listings. This means that the Bendigo market will not have any short-term growth coming through. Okay, now let's move to another market, which is in Hobart. So let's look at what's happening in Hobart, right? So um, this is just around that Hobart CBD area, the LGA around that Hobart CBD area. So it's not the whole of Hobart, but typically you'll find that the pattern is very similar for the rest of Hobart as well. So over here, we're starting off at 4 months of inventory in May 2023, and slowly it's starting to build up. And right now we have 5.31 months of inventory. Listings are also moving up from 150 listings to around 179 listings. So an increase in the listings, increase in the inventory. The trends do not look good for the Hobart property market, so we're not going to have any short-term growth coming through in Hobart. Now, we look at markets that are cooling, markets that are not going to have any short-term growth. Now, let's look at markets that are going to have short-term growth, right? I'm going to first look at Rockhampton, which is in central Queensland. Skiing it, Rockhampton. So this is the data for Rockhampton. Look at that. The first one is we starting off at 3, which is already very tight, and then we are seeing this sharp decline, and now we had 2.3 months of inventory. So remember, I said anything under 3 is already a seller's market. So we've already in a kind of heated conditions in May 2023, and that's just getting more and more tighter here. So we are at 2.3 months of inventory. Listings are showing a decline from 625 to 452. So a significant drop in the listings as well. So both this is telling me that there's going to be short-term growth in Rockhampton. So next 2 to 3 years is going to be good in Rockhampton. Look at the rental market. So rents have increased from 450 to around 490 over the past year for houses, and vacancy rates is it's just under that 1%, which means it's really, really tight there in Rockhampton. Let's look at Townsville. So I'm going to look at um, it's Kelso, which is a suburb in Townsville, but as I said, we're looking at this at an LGA level. So May 2023, 3 months of inventory, just slightly building up here, and this is where the real slide begins. 3 months of inventory, 4 months of inventory in October 2023, and then as of May 24, 1.59 months of inventory. Look at that sharp decrease. That is significant. That is massive, right? And that's being reflected. If you tried buying property in Townsville, you will have noticed this sharp change, because over there demand is super high, You have 20, 30 people visiting open homes, and then stock is super low. There's hardly any properties available on the market or for sale. And that's what's being shown here, that sharp decline in inventory, especially over that past 6 months, where prices really started moving forward, and that market momentum was shifting. And that's clearly being reflected in the data here. And again, look at that sharp drop in listings from 1,000 listings last year to 519. So that's a reduction of 50%. 50%, that's massive, right? We talk about the Perth property market going through, a massive reduction in the stock, but look at this, 50% reduction in Townsville, which is comparable to what we're seeing in markets, very heated markets like Perth. And this is going to be really positive for Townsville in terms of short-term growth. And I can say for sure that this market is going to have more growth over the next 2 to 3 years, right? Now let's move to Western Australia. So I'm going to look at uh, Bunbury, which is a suburb called Kerry Park. So Bunbury is seeing 4 months of inventory, and that inventory is tightening up, and right now it's 2.98. So clearly, the inventory is reducing, and the listings have been reducing from 509 to 411, right? If you look at the rental market, rents have increased from 490 to about 570. So that's a fairly significant increase in the rents. And then the vacancy rate is under 1%. So a really tight rental market as well. So now you've seen how you can use data to identify the movement of these property markets. Now, while this is a good indicator of short-term growth, it is not factoring a very important point, and that is how much growth the suburb has had in the past. For example, a suburb could still be demonstrating a very good short-term growth, but could have grown already by 80, 90, 100 percentage. So ideally, you would want to avoid a market like that. We want to still look at markets that didn't have too much of growth over that 10-year period, and even always show that shorter time frames of 3 to 5 years. So that's another important thing that you need to look at when assessing the data. Okay, so I hope this you found this video useful. If you like this video, if you like the content, please subscribe and give a like to that video, and I'll be posting more content like this in the future so that you can benefit from it.